Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell Dev stream, the live stream series where I continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platform mechanics and multiple endings. If you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and boop that bell button to stay notified. Now, as a fun little a reminder, the most recent patch for the Heartwell demo is live. So, hello Quinn, thank you so much for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. As I was saying, the most recent patch for the Heartwell demo is now live and available on Steam. So that means all these changes that we've been working on for the past like year and a half or so are finally in the Heartwell demo. So the agility rework, the new settings and edits menu, lots of good stuff. So that means we are finally ready to continue moving forward with Heartwell's development rather than and working on stuff that was more foundational. I mean, we're still working on foundational stuff, but at least it's new foundational stuff. And by that, I mean attack animations. So, as you all remember from a while ago, we had to put this on pause for a while for that. Jay said, hello, Jay. Thank you so much for dropping by. How's it going? Jay says, first post-patch stream. Indeed, this is the first post-patch stream. So, I'm really just excited that we're finally able to get back to making more weapons, doing more like stuff to continue development forward, because the past year and a half, while it was extremely important to do what we did, it was also stuff that was largely kind of refining what was already there as opposed to adding new things. So now we're finally going to continue to add new things. And I guess Jay and Twin, how's the new patch playing for you? I saw by the way, Jay, I saw your challenge run video for the pacifist Heartwell demo. It was really entertaining. I enjoyed it very much. It was also pretty cool to watch, just like all the fun moments that went into actually successfully exiting the demo without defeating anything. And yeah, let's see. So you might be asking yourselves, okay, we drew the scythe last stream. What now? Well, it's time to draw something that's very near and dear to my heart in the Souls community, and that, of course, is a bow. So anyone who's seen my Elden Ring streams know that I've been know that I've done a bow only challenge run, and I like bows, even if From Software always makes them underpowered. So. But I'm going to do my best to make the bow a perfectly viable and effective option in Heartwell. But before we can do that, we actually need to have an animation for that. Quinn says, you love the new patch. All the colors and faster pace makes the game so jaunty. Aw, thanks, Quinn. I appreciate it. So when you say jaunty, what do you mean by that, Quinn? Is that to say, like, jaunty as in more fun, more entertaining, or does that mean something else? Jay says, two sticks and a string is the most superior weapon. I mean, no joke. I mean, in real life, you have to understand, bows, at least back in the day, when in the time of like knights and armor and swords and stuff, most of like the actual like enemies defeated on the battlefield were defeated with bows and to a lesser extent crossbows. And there's a reason for that. It's because they were effective ranged weapons at a time where that wasn't as common. So while lots of people would wield melee weapons like spears and swords, it was actually the archers who were doing most of the defeating, while those with melee weapons were mostly just meant to be more of a distraction or better for close quarters. Twin, you also saw the challenge run. Awesome. Quinn says you found Georgia quite difficult. Yeah, especially with the new second phase being a nice little surprise. I think the addition of the second phase for Matt Smith was fair though. Like, I think it made sense. It definitely reinforced the importance of precise platforming. So for right now, we're gonna bring the bow down here. in this animation, let's we haven't done anything in the bottom left for a while. Let's go bottom left. Jay says, high power recurve bows can penetrate plate and chainmail if it lands straight. True, very true. And in fact, in Dark Souls 1, a recurve bow called the composite bow was unequivocally the best bow in that game because of how effective it was at that. Oh, Quinn says you saw the 2-hour run, not the pacifist run. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I saw the 2-hour run as well from Grekor. That was really cool to see too. Okay, so we have this here. I think oddly enough, there is a animation somewhere around here where Dorothy's like throwing a rock. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Well, trying to think of how. Actually, no. Well, sorta. It's weird because we might honestly be better off starting from scratch in terms of our arm animations here, because we don't really have an animation where Dorothy just kind of holds something in front of her, like straight in front of her. Like, she holds things up before, but she doesn't really like hold something in front, like straight in front of her like you would with a bow. So I'm thinking we probably should start with a side animation that's kind of like that's similar to what we do with like the staff, for example. Although, I'll note that Dorothy's feet will probably have to not move very much, though, because of how... Actually, no, I take it back. Dorothy's foot might move when she draws the arrow... Sorry, when she draws the bowstring back. Yeah. Jay says, will the bow have charge mechanics? Great question. I would probably say no, just because at least in Dark Souls, there's no benefit to holding an arrow for longer than it takes to actually fire it. And the way the game is currently programmed, it would add a level of complexity that I don't really think makes a whole lot of sense. But I do see, like, wanting to make the bow a genuinely, you know, a good weapon, especially for, like, the early mid-game. Now, obviously, there'll be better stuff in the late game, but I think the bow should still be all around a solid ranged weapon. Or at least that should be the intent with it. Let's get the body next. Yeah. So in terms of what the bow is good at, though, there is one thing. I'll mention at least one of the specials I'm considering for the bow. And that is, like, a way to get ammo back more quickly when the bow specifically is equipped. So my thought is having there be a special called, like, Scavenger or something. And the idea is that whenever you are moving with the bow equipped, your ammo regenerates faster. And that's to kind of represent the idea of, like, well, in real life, if you were to fire an arrow, you could pick things up. And also just kind of how nimble archers are kind of expected to be. So even if the bow might have a you know, a higher ammo cost than, well, obviously than rocks, but possibly even than tomahawks. A special like that might actually help it feel more manageable, potentially. And another thought was to give, perhaps give the bow some way to get some earth status buildup. Just innately. And that would be because the... well, the bow is... in real life, like, bows can... like you point out, Jay, like, a composite bow can penetrate some amounts of armor, so that would be kind to represent that. But that's all theoretical right now, because as much as I might talk about various specials, ultimately, it'll those will be decisions I'll have to make as I'm filling out my weapon balancing spreadsheet. So, a pet peeve of mine, chat, is when there's like multiple different items in a game and they're not, shall we say, properly balanced and next to each other. And what I mean by that is sometimes there are just genuinely items, like equipment in a game that is just statistically like inferior to the competition in every single conceivable way. And there is no point in the game, early, mid, or late, where you would ever consider actually using that equipment because it's just inferior. Now, obviously, there's going to be different kind of tiers of weapons in Heartwell, just because it's a game that's very power creep heavy on purpose. So stuff that's later is generally going to be more generally more powerful on average than stuff that's earlier in the game. However, that does not mean things are obsolete. It just means it's from a different part of the game, kind of like late game weapons in Dark Souls versus early game weapons. But even so, I want to make sure every weapon kind of has its niche to fill. So part of the weapons balancing spreadsheet is trying to make sure that for the weapons that, statistically speaking, relative to their competition for that point in the game, how they fare, if they are seeming like they have, like, if they seem statistically inferior in some capacity, trying to find some other something that they can do to give them some utility or something unique. And the example, I'm sure the example that's pretty obvious from the demo is how the rocks and fists are structured. Like, in the demo, there are literally, like, a melee weapon and a ranged weapon you can get in the demo that outclass the fists and rots very easily. You know, that being the axe and the tomahawks. However, they are the things that they each have their own little bits of utility to make up for the fact that their damage is so low. So the fist has the gifted hand special to help out with ammo regen and healing, and the rocks have the ability to get innate surge buildup, which allow them to be very useful for setting up for crits. So those are the kinds of things that I try to think about as I think about different specials and how to balance the different weapons in the game. Jay says, you like inferior weapons for lore reasons. You enter a guard post at the front of the fallen castle, and the King's Guard have been outfitted with fancy-looking blades crafted of flimsy steel. You can use them, but they're built to tell a story, not be strong. That's a fair point. That is a good point. Like, that's an example where I could see the argument, like, yeah, they should be weaker because they're meant for the commons, you know, the common guard, not like any special unit. I can understand that. I'm more so thinking, like, when a game tries to convince you that an piece of equipment should be good or comparable when it just isn't. And this is more of a problem, particularly with, like, multiplayer FPS games. Because, like, I can genuinely remember some weapons that are, like, in games that are just, like, inferior to the weapons you unlocked earlier in the multiplayer. So, the example I like to give is there was a video game in the Call of Duty series called Modern Warfare 3. Now, Modern Warfare 3 has a ton of weapons. All right? But I want us to focus on the launcher category. So in the launchers, you have a couple of different rocket launchers, and you have 2 different grenade launchers, the XM25 and the M320 GLM. Now, in Modern Warfare 3, the XM25 you unlock earlier in your prestige. So think of it like this: you're earning XP, you level up, and at certain levels you unlock certain weapons. All right? So earlier, you unlock the XM25 first, before the M320 GLM in that level progression. And it is the XM25. It's a grenade launcher. It has a 4-round magazine and 12 rounds in reserve. It has the ability to set a detonation. It has the ability to essentially set an air burst range, so where you aim down sight, you identify a range, and then the grenades you fire will actually just burst in midair as opposed to when on impact. So, and it has a decent fire rate. So it's a grenade launcher. It has an area of effect. It has this air burst feature that you can choose to use or not. It has plenty of reserve ammo. Solid grenade launcher, right? Then, like, I think almost like 15 or 20 levels later, you unlock the M320 GLM. And the M320 GLM has 2 rounds. One in the chamber and one in reserve. The M320 GLM has terrible iron sights. The explosive radius of the grenade is identical to the XM25. And while the XM25's grenades shoot in a straight line, the M320 GLM's grenades fire in a very weak arc. And while the XM25 can be hip fired, I think the M320 GLM can't. Now, why do I bring all this up? Not only is the M320 GLM statistically inferior in every conceivable way to the XM25, it is actually weaker than the underbarrel grenade launcher attachment than you can put on the assault rifles in the game. So in other words, like, you are essentially, the game is trying to convince you that this grenade launcher you got later is somehow better than a attachment that you can put on an assault rifle, or the very obviously superior grenade launcher you got earlier in your level progression. That's the kind of stuff I don't like. Like, if it comes later, it should be either comparable to what's come before or somewhat better. Or at least have a different niche, kind of like a side grade in Team Fortress 2. But that thing, the M320 GLM, will always kind of be like, have a massive inferiority complex to every other grenade launcher in the game. Anyway, so enough of, I think that was enough of a little aside there. All right, so what I'm thinking, we start with the side, since I think the side will be easier to draw. Let's start with the arms. Hi, chat. So, questions for you, chat. Have you ever played a game where, like, there's a late game weapon or item that's just genuinely inferior to everything else? Or, conversely, have you ever played a game where there's, like, something that's so good so early on that you'd never actually consider using anything later? Because for me, I see that all the time in games. Both of those things. And whether it's a good thing or not kind of depends on what the game is. Okay. Drawing time, drawing time. Let's draw a bow. I think we start with the front of the body first, and then we move to the back of the body. Now I think about it, we're actually going to need another set of Dorothy's down here. That's because of the hair. Jay says, you find DLC will often div starring items that overshadow anything you find until late game. Can't think of any off the top of my head, though. That's true. But at least with, I mean, it depends on what the game is. At least in, like, the Souls games, the DLC is usually something where you either can't get to it until late game, or it's something where you have to overcome some challenge to unlock it. So I think that's fair. Like, I'll use Elden Ring as the example just because it's the most recent Souls game with the DLC. The Elden Ring DLC has plenty of items, equipment, talismans, etc. that are just genuinely superior to what is in the base game. But that's okay, because in order to actually get to the DLC, you need to actually defeat two very difficult bosses at two very different parts of the map. And you probably aren't doing that until, like, late game, simply because the bosses are fairly difficult. They're two of the demigod bosses, those being Mode and General Radahn. However, because of the way Elden Ring's designed, you can get there earlier if you know how to defeat those bosses effectively with early game weapons. And to that, I think it's actually kind of cool because it rewards the player for being skillful. Like, if the player knows this thing, like, there's something I want in the DLC, but I need to defeat these two demigods to do it, then coming up with the strategies to actually, like, defeat those demigods at a low level or with basic equipment is actually, you know, really, really satisfying. Like, I remember, like, off stream, I sometimes do a rune level 1 fire only challenge run. And one of the most satisfying epiphanies for me was actually realizing just how good the Mighty Shot skill actually is on some of, like, the standard bows against General Radahn. Like, I almost never used that thing before in the bow only challenge run, but once I figured out that you can use Mighty Shot with an aim shot if you, like, start the animation then immediately aim, suddenly it becomes, like, probably the single easiest or most straightforward way to deal a good amount of damage to General Radahn from a safe distance, while also keeping up a decent rate of fire. Because the thing is like, you could use a great bow, but a great bow is very slow. And using a regular bow while, you know, it'll deal damage, you're not dealing a ton of damage. But Mighty Shot kind of, as a skill, kind of bridges that gap and actually makes you deal close to great bow level damage while also being, you know, probably faster than how a great bow operates. Like, that's legitimately how, like, once I figured that out, how effective that was, it's like, that made defeating General Radahn fairly straightforward. Even though I had those stipulations working against me. Yeah, I think Heartwell is going to be much the same in the sense that, well, not with, like, a DLC or anything, but, like, I think Heartwell will be much the same in the sense that there's going to be, like, some genuinely good stuff you can get before the, what we'll say, the midpoint of the game, but in order to get that stuff, you need to, you know, explore quite a bit and defeat some bosses. Jay says, am I familiar with Warframe? Yes, I am. I have actually played Warframe before, though I haven't played it in a very long while. It's a fun game, definitely a fun MMO, but I don't know what it was about it. I've just reached kind of a certain point with it where I just kind of got bored, and I don't know what it was exactly. Like, I understand, like, there's genuinely a lot of depth to that game, But after a certain point, I just felt like I wasn't really, like... It wasn't quite grabbing me in the same way as a Souls game and grabs me. Maybe that's just because at a certain point it became like, do you have the right frames? Have you optimized them correctly, etc.? As opposed to having much to do with actual, like, mechanical skill at that point. But, I digress. Warframe has existed for many years now. I'm sure it's had tons of updates and has tons of cool stuff. If you don't mind me asking, Jay, have you played Warframe? And if so, what's your, which frame did you kind of prefer? Because for me, at least when I played it, I think it was the magnetic frame that I used a lot. Alright, well now we have all these Dorothys here, let's bring the bow over. Okay, so basically... trying to think of how this will look. I want Dorothy's hand to be kind of like that, which means this has to be in line with the arm here. Wow. It's easy to forget, chat, just how long bows are, but if you actually have like a genuinely decently sized bow, like a true long bow, it'll actually be like almost as tall as a person, if not longer. That's something to think about. Alright, so obviously it needs to be kind of around there. And we'll need... Actually, I don't need to copy this over to behind the front body. There's a reason for that. So we need that. Jay says, you still play Warframe a lot. You alternate a lot, mainly using the glass, electric, fire, spearman, speaker, or cat hammer frames. Anyway, you bring up Warframe because it has 179 primaries, 137 weapons, and 2 melee weapons. Wow, that is a lot. I'm going to guess that there are some that are easily better than others. Alright. And Jay says, in every major patch, a usage poll is done on these weapons, and at least ones get special buffs in certain mods. Ah, okay. That's an interesting way to handle it. I guess just to make sure the meta stays fresh, as opposed to just stagnating. Let's see, if I were holding this in, if I were holding a bow in front of me. The, would actually be further in front of me. Yeah. because when you pull back a bow, it's gonna be close. Your arm's gonna be close to where your shoulder is. Let's think about this. That'd be a long reach even for Dorothy, though. Jay says there's still a semi-consistent meta, but with how customization there is, even the rank 0 weapon that shoots glue balls can tackle late game content. Though it's somewhat difficult. Gotcha. Okay. Alright, I was originally thinking that, like, trying to keep the bow kind of on the side where it's easier to see it, but I'm almost wondering if it might be better to actually keep the bow kind of behind Dorothy. And that might make it seem a bit more natural, because I'm looking at this, and if I'm going to draw, like, Dorothy holding a... If I'm going to, like, draw, like, Dorothy's hand pulling back the bowstring, not only is it going to be kind of hard to see Dorothy, but it's also might look a bit odd. So let's work under the assumption here that the bow is actually going to be behind Dorothy. And that she'll draw it with her... Actually, yeah, since Dorothy's right-handed, she would draw it with her right hand. That can speak from... I can tell you that much from experience, since I'm right-handed. I've drawn a bow before. Alright. In that case... Actually gonna move these behind everything. This on the miscellaneous layer temporarily. The reason we'll do that is just to, yeah. Make things be a little easier to work with here. Alright, Dorothy. Grab that bow. Twin says, this piece power line's so peaceful. Yes, it is. It is indeed. Very peaceful sounding. Alright, we need a animation. Just... Oh, it's just Dorothy's shoulder would be more forward. Right. Yeah. Okay, let's go with... like that. Yeah, I think that's the closest we've gotten this to actually looking decent so far. We have that, but now what we need is an arrow. Alright, let's find that arrow. I don't remember if I drew an arrow or not. It wouldn't be that difficult to draw, just, Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, I guess it's a crossbow bolt, but still can be used for something similar. In my mind, an arrow should be definitely larger than a crossbow bolt, though, so we'll use this as reference, but not like the main thing. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, Chad, is trying to adapt the crossbow bolts into our arrow. Think about how this would line up. Like, this would be about here. This has to be when it's drawn. Actually, yeah. So, I think about when the bow is drawn back, that arrow needs to be at the front. So, right, that gives us something to work with. Knowing that, That means... Yeah, an arrow would first of all have to be about that long, at minimum. Yeah. There we go. We have ourselves a little arrow. Do we dare do that or not? What do you think looks better, chat? This is like a tiny detail. Put the arrow on top or the arrow on bottom. Bear in mind, we won't be this zoomed in when we're playing. We'll be kind of more like here. The only difference is whether or not to outline the arrowhead or not. Quinn says top for you. Yeah, I could see that because it just seems like you zoom in on the arrow then. Sure, here we are. Arrow. I think I see what you're saying. The colors are different enough that they actually contrast well with each other and it gives it a bit more of a definition. Whereas the bottom one's almost looking more like a rocket. So, yeah. Okay. This shall be our arrowhead. Knowing that. It starts around there. Here's how to line this up. Yeah, that'll be when the bow isn't drawn back yet. Yep. Arrowheads. And Dorothy steps back a little bit. It goes to about there, I think. No, it actually goes to... Where does that go? Oh, that would be in front. Okay, gotcha. Or something like that. Now let's get the arms. Okay. I'll let that. And then the release animation is just the same. Well, it's similar. It'll actually be two. One with the arrow there and one not. Grab that bow. Cool. Yep. I know it's just one side, chat. But this right here is effectively what a arrow drawing animation looks like. Look at that, chat. We're making some progress. We draw our bow. So we have bow and arrow. We draw back a little bit and fire. Just... Now for the other side, we can just kind of copy pasta. But for the other two sides, we'll have to be a little more creative. Adorable. Yes, very adorable. Adorable bow attack. Grab these. Cool. That's the arms. It's odd, like the style animation I thought was going to be a bit more complicated, but it's honestly was a lot more straightforward than I thought it would be. I think it helps that, you know, the actual like drawing of the bowstrings kind of behind Dorothy, so that does help a bit. Twin says, Antomicx, do you like cute things in real life? Like plushies, colorful clothes, sir? Because Dorothy in the game seem very cutesy and colorful. I'd say, in general, sure, I like cute things. Like cute puppies, cute kittens, colorful environments. I'd say that's fair. Oh no. Yeah, it's... Oh no. But yeah, I'd say in general I do like cute things. And also colorful environments, because that makes everything feel a lot more alive. Alright. I actually think the animation we did here for the Windraker would probably be a good reference point. Yeah. So I'm using the Windraker here, chat, as a reference point because it does have part of it, the contraption looks like a bow. So that could definitely help. It is a very similar length. Alright. There we go. To start. Actually, we'll just copy past that. Yeah. There we go. Now we have effectively at least one side of the animation here. That'd be from the front, how a bow would look. Twin says you're bad. What was my reply? So my reply was, yep, I generally like cute things in real life as well as colorful things, because colorful things I feel make everything feel a lot more vibrant and alive. All right. Right now we're just doing the front and back views of a bow. So the difference here is just that. Oop. 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 It's otherwise identical. Yeah, there we go. Cool. We have our nice bow to work with. You see, like, this would be looking frontward and that would be backward. Now we have that. Just that as our reference point. Let's think about this. Dorothy is holding a bow. She draws it back with her right hand. That means it needs to be over here on her right side. So our left, her right. Let's grab the arm animations. I think probably the sword animation would actually be a good starting point. Yeah, something like that. Exactly what is needed. Looks good. Alright. So right now we're doing the front and back animations. Alright. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, holding it in front of me. Maybe just kind of below the chin. Let's think about how this would look. Grab that. We know that these at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Okay. Be around there. Based off of the Windraker over here. Well, the Windraker was like a rocket launcher, but this would not be something shoulder mounted. It would be something like that. Also, starting animation, we need actually to move things about. So we actually don't want these particular leg animations because of how, like, the leg that's in front should be the same as the one that is actually, no, hold on. Yeah, so the arm holding in front should have the same one in theory. So actually, yeah, we want this and then kind of a standing animation to begin with. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. So we're holding the bow. Yeah. Or actually, wait, no, we could do. Oh, no, it still makes sense. So you're kind of standing still, holding it, then you're stepping your foot forward very forcefully. Okay. We also need to think of what does an arrow look like in that direction. The simplest thing would just be to rotate this. So if I'm pulling an arrow back like this, it's going to be kind of around here. Add that depth perception. Doesn't feel quite right about this. Yeah, the depth perception is very... Oh, this is very odd. Actually... Oh, actually, wait, no. An arrowhead wouldn't be like that. It would be kind of more straight on. I think there could be onto something here. Wait. Alright, I think we'll have to start with something like that. Now, let's try to get the arms looking correctly. See what we can do. Okay. Grab that. There we go. There. Then we'll put that there. Now for behind the body. Yeah, this wasn't a situation where we need to take advantage of the fact that we can't really see much of what's going on. First we do something like that to kind of indicate where the arm is. And then the next one, we have to move things back. Let's grab. Grab this. Alright. And you might think, chat, oh, this is pixel art. Surely it can't be that difficult because there aren't that many things to fill in. But no, because you have so little to work with, you have to really be mindful of what you're doing. Yeah, so there's the bow drawn back. I bring the arrowhead back. best way to do this is to make it seem like Dorothy's really straining here. Yeah, so if it's something like that works. There we go. I think what's a good animation for that back arm? Yeah. Honestly, probably currently thinking the punching animation. That's usually a good reference point. All right. One, two, three, four. Something like that. Yep. I think that works. Because you're gripping, then you kind of release. So if I'm gripping, I release. Especially dramatically. Now to repeat the process, but for the other side.
I'll tell you the truth.
Before we do that, though, chat, I'm going to take a quick break. So, to corner guys, I will be right back. chat. Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue where we left off. All right.
Very much alike.
Okay, that's our starting point.
Remember all the happy times we had?
Okay. Hi, Quinn. How's it going?
Very much alike. All right. I'll tell you the truth.
Right now we're trying to draw the other side over here. My Quinn says you're sleepy. Oh no. Well, I should be finishing up here soon. Essentially, once I get this side all drawn, I'll probably call it a night there. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this may seem like it's taking a while, and it is, but to be fair, this is a, essentially new animations for us. So, new animations will always be trickier, and that's okay. Alright, first things first. We'll start with, is this okay? I see. Things first. All right. Okay. When asked, do I go to sleep directly or do I watch a show before bed? I generally go to sleep directly after I take care of stuff for the stream. I think it's important to get a good night's sleep. There we go. Got the arms in the right position now. Now what I need are the bow itself. Alright. These are good reference points since we'll need these. There we go. Quinn says, you're watching a show called Alice in Borderland. It's a fantastic thriller, and you like being cozy and trying to solve the mystery. Oh, I see. Well, hope you enjoy it. Ready? Alrighty. go. No. Let's see here. Not that. We need this. Going over here. Yeah, that wouldn't be visible because it'd be kind of behind everything. Alrighty. Cool. Alright, chat, I think we got it. What do you think of those animations? They were nice, They were nice bow animations, no? Admittedly, when you're watching it from the back, there isn't much to see, but I guess that makes sense because you won't really be able to see much anyway. Eat. We have our nice little bow attack animations, which are brand new animations for us. I'll do us plenty to work with. I think that'll be a good spot to wrap things up for now. So if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for raid. But if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. If you're subscribed on YouTube, you can always change my layer. It's our ratio support. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got an amazing night.